Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heat is gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining.
Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies and all of us are limping towards the finish of the regular season. The Grizzlies lost back-to-back games on Tuesday and Wednesday against the Spurs and the Cavs. They used makeshift rosters for both games, and now they have just 2 more games left in the regular season. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about the games against the Spurs and the Cavs, hopefully in the most lighthearted way possible. Before I get to those games, just a reminder that you should join my Patreon at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you join that Patreon, you get exclusive bonus content. You can join the Slack channel that I have with other NBA diehards. You also support the creation of these episodes. So check it out, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. The Grizzlies, before the Spurs game, added another player. Why not? They signed Jack White, who, of course, shares a name with a very famous Nashvilleian. But they added, what is this, the 32nd player who's played this year? That might be wrong. I'll be real. I lost count. But Maozinha Pereira's second 10-day contract expired. I'm a little sad about that one. I thought Pereira was good. That guy's a ball player. But to keep him, the Grizzlies had to sign him to an end-of-the-season deal. They couldn't do that. They don't have a roster spot. So in comes Jack White to join Timmy Allen as the newest players on the Grizzlies. And so against the Spurs, once again, new starting lineup. This was their 50th starting lineup or different starting lineup this season. They used their 51st starting lineup in the next game against the Cavaliers. Brandon Clark started against the Spurs, got his first start of this season. Those 51 different starting lineups, that's an NBA record. As long as we've kept tabs on it, no team's ever done that. Used that many different starting lineups in a single season. The Grizzlies have started 23 different players this year, which again is just madness. But the loss to the Spurs, frankly, it hurt because I, maybe more than anyone, cared about the Grizzlies' overall team winning streak against the Spurs. They had beaten the Spurs 13 straight times in the regular season, 14 times overall if you include that 2021 play-in game. I do include that 2021 playoff game. So the Grizzlies had 14 straight wins over the Spurs, and that has been extinguished. The streak nearly came to an end several times. There were 3 massive Grizzlies comeback games in the last year and a half to keep the streak alive, but that streak ended, and the Spurs now, we're probably not going to beat them 14 straight times again now that they have Victor Wembanyama. So I was certainly sad to see that streak go. Basically, when I saw who was playing, I had very little hope. I mean, it started off pretty good where the Grizzlies won the first quarter. They held the Spurs to 16 points. Jordan Goodwin, who maybe is the story of this game outside of the streak getting snapped. Jordan Goodwin had 19 rebounds. Of course, that's a career high. He had 8 offensive rebounds, also career high. But in the first quarter alone, Jordan Goodwin had 8 points and 8 rebounds as the Grizzlies led by 9. But then the second quarter, the Spurs got it going. And then the third quarter was on the short list for worst quarters played this year. I mean, yet another nominee for the worst quarter of the season. They made 4 out of 24 field goal attempts in this third quarter. They scored 12 points in that third. That is so bad, it's honestly hard to do in the NBA. Kind of impressive to pull off a quarter where you shoot 4 for 24. Overall, the team shot 34.6% for the game. That's their second worst field goal percentage in a game this season. They scored 87 points, which is the second fewest points they've had in a game this year. They made a season low 6 3-pointers. They shot a season worst 20% from the 3-point line. So lots of it just very, very bad. Of course, it's the players that played. You don't really expect that much. I mean, Brandon Clark, fine, good player. Unfortunately, none of his buddies were out there to play with him. Brandon Clark had 14 points in that starting role, only grabbed 1 rebound. He got a block and a steal, and everybody else just bad shooting numbers. The Grizzlies, this is a very obscure stat that Sean Coleman found. The Grizzlies in this game had 4 guys who attempted at least 15 field goal attempts and made 5 or fewer of them. No team has ever done that. Ever. First time that's happened in NBA history. Like G.G. Jackson really struggled. 4 out of 17 from the field. GG against the Cavs, he started off actually 4 for 18 in that game. So some rough shooting performances from GG over the past 2 games. But the Grizzlies, the offense, like has been all season, totally anemic. The Grizzlies get destroyed in the third quarter. The game is not close. It's another blowout home loss. And the Grizzlies, right now, with 2 home games remaining to be played, the Grizzlies are 9-30 at home. That is by far their worst home record since the franchise moved to Memphis. Even if they win their final 2 home games against the Nuggets and Lakers, spoiler, they're not going to win both those games. Even if they did win both of them, they still would have comfortably the worst home record since the team moved to Memphis. We're talking 23 seasons. The next worst home record was 14-27. Like even Mark Ivaroni as coach won more home games. But it's been a weird year. We've talked about how, hey, guess what? The Grizzlies have a better road record this year than they did last year when the team was the 2 seed. Very, very strange. What does it mean? Absolutely nothing. No idea. But the Grizzlies had some putrid home performances this year and finish with this worst home record since the team was in Vancouver. There was a Vancouver season where they went 8-33 at home. We're not going to match that. We're not going to surpass that. But this year, if you went to every Grizzlies home game, I mean, first of all, you're a rock star. Good job. Incredible. But here are some of the things you witnessed. This is not a comprehensive list, but like you only witnessed obviously 9 wins. You witnessed the team, like they did against the Spurs on Tuesday, fail to score 100 points 14 times. No team has more home games where they failed to score 100 points. You saw the team lose by 20 or more 8 different times. That's tied for the most home losses by 20 or more in the NBA. This Spurs loss only lost by 15. Not bad. So that one doesn't count. Because of the injuries, and we all know it's injuries. Okay. You only saw Ja Morant play 4 games. That's bad luck. The Grizzlies went 2-2 in those games. You only saw Marcus Smart play 8 times. The team went 1-7 at home when Marcus Smart played. The one win, it's when Ja Morant played. You saw Derrick Rose play 15 times. The team went 3-12 when Derrick Rose played. Here's the thing. If you went to every Grizzlies home game this year, you saw Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane both suit up and start 19 times. So 19 out of 39. That obviously not good as far as the availability of your best players. Desmond Bane has dealt with this injury and, was out for a long time, came back, played a few games. But when Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. both played this year in those 19 games, the Grizzlies only went 3-16. Making that number worse, if you throw out the 2 games they won when Ja Morant played, the Grizzlies went 1-14 in home games when Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane both played and if Ja Morant was not available. That's impossibly bad. And I'm not going to draw huge conclusions from it. It's just a novelty stat. I don't think the Grizzlies' home record this year reflects much of anything other than, wow, they sure had a bad year. They sure lost a ton of games. I mean, flat out, if you have Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. and anybody else, you should do better than 1-14 at home. But I don't know. I find that stat to be staggering. And what's even stranger might be just that, reminder the Grizzlies had the best home record of the NBA last year. They had the best home record that any team's had in the last 5 seasons last year. This year, just grotesque numbers. Obviously, a lot of things didn't work out how you thought they would. I mean, even like the Marcus Smart trade didn't work out how you thought it would. Even when he was healthy, we thought Marcus Smart would help fill in for Ja Morant. No. The Grizzlies were 0-6 when Marcus Smart played in home games and Ja Morant wasn't there. And again, 1-14 when Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. both played and Ja Morant was unavailable. But going back to this last home loss, the loss against the Spurs, I guess we can highlight Jordan Goodwin's entire stat line. 19 rebounds, 5 assists, 10 points. I mean, helping him get those 19 rebounds and those 8 offensive rebounds is the fact that the Grizzlies missed 68 shots. That's the most shots they've missed in any game this entire year. Trey Jemison, he grabbed 9 rebounds. 5 of those were on the offensive glass. He had 14 points, 9 boards, got a incredible block of Victor Wembanyama. Scottie Pippen Jr., he was one of those guys struggling from the field, 4 out of 15, 14.7 boards, 5 assists, did match his career high once again with 4 steals. Xavier Simpson got up 15 shots, only made 5 of them. Timmy Allen and Jack White combined for 12 points, 6 apiece. Good job, fellas. So then this next game against the Cavaliers, second night of a back-to-back, no Brandon Clark. This game was all about Jake LaRavia. Okay, so Jake LaRavia misses the first night of the back-to-back. He's out in the game against the Spurs. Jake LaRavia starts against the Cavaliers alongside Gigi Jackson, Lamar Stevens, Trey Jemison, and Scottie Pippen Jr. So Jordan Goodwin sits out the game against the Cavaliers. This game, very, very odd, but Jake LaRavia was a flamethrower. Made 8 3-pointers, which is a career high. He scores a career high 32 points. And the 3-pointers he hits in this one were absurd. He gets it going in the first quarter. He kind of maybe got uncorked with this desperation end of the shot clock heave that goes in. And that kicks off a personal 9-0 run for Jake as he makes 3 straight 3-pointers. It ends up being part of an overall 17-2 Grizzlies run where they built a 9-point lead in the first quarter. Unfortunately, after that, the Grizzlies missed their final 7 shots of the first quarter. The Cavs finished the quarter on a 12-0 run, erasing the Grizzlies' lead. Was it because the Grizzlies were playing a lineup of Xavier Simpson, Timmy Allen, Jack White, Lamar Stevens, and Jake LaRavia? Possibly. That is a weird lineup. It, of course, has no center. It doesn't really have a power forward, and also doesn't really have a point guard either. I mean, one of the things that we've noticed, or I've noticed maybe about Jake LaRavia, is pretty strong finish to the year. He now has 2 shooting explosion games to go with just overall good basketball outside of the shooting in the other games, is that I think Jake is more of a wing, not really a 4. Basically, he's kind of a small forward, and I think that gives him more positional versatility, and I think those players are harder to find, guys who can survive on the wing, and so that's been a good thing to see from Jake. But Jake ends up in this first half scoring 21 points, makes all 6 of his threes, and I'd like to reiterate, all 6 of the threes he made were bonkers. All right, well, a couple of them were standstill, open catch and shoots, but several of them were wild, and then the last 2 he hits, I mean, these are like Steph Curry level, just trick shots. Ends up draining them. So because of Jake going 6 for 6 in the first half from the 3-point line, the team in the first half went 10 for 17 from the 3-point line. But here's the catch. 10 for 17 on threes in the first half. That gave the Grizzlies a lead, but it was only a tiny lead because the Grizzlies shot 7 out of 30 on 2-pointers in the first half. That's maybe the worst 2-point percentage I've ever seen in a half of basketball. 23% on 2-pointers in the first half. So then third quarter, it honestly stays kind of close. I mean, the Grizzlies cannot score. Like in the second quarter, the Cavs couldn't score. I think the Cavs went 7 minutes only scoring 3 points. In the third quarter, the Grizzlies got outscored 30-16. They only made 5 field goals and had 6 turnovers. If you're keeping track at home, against the Spurs in the third quarter, 4 field goals. Against the Cavs in the third quarter, 5 field goals. It's not great. G.G. Jackson went 1 for 7 on field goal attempts in the third. Trey Jemison scores the Grizzlies' third bucket of the quarter with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. By the way, when Trey Jemison made that basket, he became just the 5th Grizzlies player to score in this game. Only 4 guys scored in the first half. There were 0 bench points. So it was Pippen, Lamar Stevens, G.G. Jackson, and Jake LaRavia, only guys to score through the first 31 minutes of this game. But despite all that, the Grizzlies were only down by 5 with under 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. It was 70-65. Then the Cavs finished the third quarter on a pretty solid run, and they did not. The Grizzlies did not make it a game in the fourth quarter, didn't stick around. Cavs get an important win for them. Grizzlies, lose like they were destined to do. The team shoots a pretty decent percentage on 2-pointers in the second half, but still finished the game under 40% on 2-pointers. This was the Grizzlies' 10th game of the season where they failed to make 40% of their 2-point attempts. So that is more games this year failing to shoot 40% on 2-pointers than they had in the previous 4 seasons combined. Just another stat that hammers home something you already know. This season is bad, and it's gone terribly. G.G. Jackson, he did, like I say, miss 14 of his first 18 shots, but he made his last 3 shots, and certainly they were in garbage time, but all 3 of his final shots were pretty awesome. And also he had an unbelievable poster dunk in the third quarter, so he finishes with 22 points. Whisper takes him 21 shots to get there. Had 2 steals and a block. Trey Jemison blocked a career-high 4 shots in this game. Got a really nice one on Evan Mobley. He forced, I think, the Cavaliers to actually struggle shooting at the basket. Jared Allen had some underwhelming shooting numbers. The big problem with Trey Jemison is he has missed so many makeable shots in the paint over the past few games. The guy really, really struggling at finishing. You see how that's probably his limitation as a player. He did finish the game with 9 rebounds to go with those 4 blocks. Got 3 assists, scored 4 points. Lamar Stevens had 16 points after missing the previous few games. He did snap his 5-game streak of having more field goal attempts than points, but he still only shot 4 out of 13 from the field. Some context to the shooting numbers, if you didn't watch the game. He had the ball into the shot clock a lot. The Grizzlies, their offense is so putrid, and they don't have creators. Scottie Pippen Jr. continues to be a bright spot, played pretty well, had 18 points and 6 assists. But most of the time, the Grizzlies were running the full shot clock out and not getting very good looks at the basket. Unfortunately, Lamar's shooting percentage suffered because of those situations. And honestly, I think that's all we have to talk about this game. When your bench is Timmy Allen, Xavier Simpson, and Jack White, and those guys combined for 6 points, not a ton to say. Wrapping up for where we are now with 2 games left, 2 home games left in this sorry season. First of all, the Grizzlies lottery spot looks to be basically secure. Unfortunately, the Raptors lost a nail biter on Wednesday night. They had the lead in the final minute against the Nets, but then Garrett Temple kind of fumbled away 2 opportunities to tie it in the final seconds. So the Nets win, the Raptors lose. Now the Raptors would have to win their final 2 games. Both of those games are against the Heat to get up to 27 wins, which the Grizzlies already have. So the odds of that occurring feel very, very low. I mean, I feel like the Grizzlies are going to take care of business and lose their final 2 home games, but I don't think the Raptors are going to beat the Heat twice, especially because the Heat are trying to get up into the 7th seed, so they have home court advantage for the play-in game. If the Grizzlies happen to win their final 2 games, and if the Jazz lose 15 straight to finish the season, which is certainly on the table, then the Grizzlies would be tied with the Jazz with the total number of wins, but I don't think the Grizzlies are going to win both of their final 2 games. So it looks like the Grizzlies will have the 7th best lottery odds going into next month's lottery drawing. Overall team news, we finally got some official-ish reports about the players who aren't playing. DeMichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal reported somewhat officially that Zaire Williams is shut down for the year. Derrick Rose is shut down for the year. Marcus Smart is shut down for the year. And, of course, Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. Those guys all shut down for the year. I don't know if there was news about that earlier than when DeMichael wrote about it. I think it was on Tuesday or Wednesday. But none of those players are coming back. There was no mention of Vince Williams Jr., so, I mean, maybe he'll play in the final 2 games, but it doesn't feel like it. I don't know about like Luke Kennard and John Conchar. Where are those guys? I kind of feel like they should play. I don't know if John Conchar is important enough to be shut down. This might be my least player-friendly opinion I have. Like, maybe you should suit up and play basketball when you have games scheduled. Like if Brandon Clark's going to be out there busting his tail, maybe Luke Kennard and John Conchar could play too. Maybe they could help out. Yuta Watanabe remains away from the team. Taylor Jenkins said he had no comment about Yuta's absence because it's of a personal nature. There was something shared in our Grits and Grinds Slack channel by Ryan, and you can join that Slack channel over at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast, where there was a Japanese language interview where it sounded like Yuta wasn't super happy in the NBA and his body was struggling to hold up to the rigors of the season. It wasn't a very encouraging vibe, but also we have to be super careful with these translations of interviews because a lot of times they don't express the proper tone or mood of what was said. And also, I don't know exactly what the source was other than being on social media. But I do feel like we've probably seen the last of Yuta Watanabe this season. He's probably not going to suit up and play in the final 2 games. And with that, I think I hit everything in my notes. Oh, I guess I could tell you that Scottie Pippen Jr. versus Darius Garland on Wednesday night was a Vanderbilt Commodores point guard matchup. Again, I think Scottie Pippen Jr. has been a big success story for the Grizzlies 2-way spot. I feel way more confident in him next year than like I would have felt in Jacob Gilyard. Maybe it's just because Scottie Pippen Jr. looks more traditionally like what we think of as an NBA point guard. Jacob, of course, not an offensive first player and the shortest player in the NBA. So Pippen's been a big bright spot as the Grizzlies finish up this season. And of course, I mean, Jake LaRavia has really shined. 32 points is wild. 8 made threes is wild. By the way, Jake matches the season high for any Grizzlies player for made threes in a game this year with 8. You know which player he matches? Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart had 8 3-pointers against the Lakers a long time ago. Anyways, that is the full episode for today. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, everybody, for sticking with me throughout this season. The episodes are going to keep coming. Nothing stops. We just have to stop watching the games next week, and then we get to look ahead to the draft and off-season stuff, and I feel like our energy is going to pick back up as we're not forced to watch this team play anymore. Anyways, support this program if you would at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, hope you have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.